Impossibility is the enemy of progress. We're always moving the goalpost on what we think is possible or not. From flight to space exploration, we have broken our own limitations. We've discussed this before. Several figures come to mind from earlier videos, like Alfred Wegener, who proposed continental drift, Michael Faraday, who discovered electromagnetism, and modern examples like Dr. Catalin Carrico, providing that human mRNA could be used for vaccines, and Dr. June Almeida, who overcame systemic rejection to invent the microscopic technique first identified the human coronavirus. All of them faced rejection from the establishment. All of them proved it wrong. But how? The standard answers are hard work, resilience, and conviction, and all of those are true. But what if there were a metaphysical structure behind the process that paved the way for the impossible to become possible, where we don't just discover reality, we actively shape it by introducing a new possibility? Welcome, conscious colleagues, to the Philosophy of Power, a movement dedicated to understanding the secrets of reality and the power of consciousness. In today's episode, we discuss the Pendulum of Power, a metaphysical structure that measures and produces new possibilities in reality. This framework uses the two rules of creation, opposition and unification, with the probabilistic layer of reality to ensure that truth is always in motion. The pendulum shows us that the only constant in this reality is change. Chaos, the structure of change. What is the first thing on your mind when you hear the word chaos? Most of the time, it's usually associated with mess, disorder, and even destruction. It's a part of life. Eventually, our daily lives are hit with random occurrences that break patterns, putting us in a state of worry and confusion. We often avoid this mess, and for good reason. It's just unnecessary stress. But what if we got it all wrong? What if chaos is not the enemy but a necessary mechanism for progress? In physics, there is a concept called entropy. Basically, an isolated system tends to become disorganized over time. This usually tracks the dispersion of energy. Think of your hot coffee getting cold or ice cubes melting in your drink. It's why an egg shatters but can never be pieced back together. The best visual for this is your own room. Even when you clean your room numerous times, it's always going to get messy again in the future. This is why we believe that the arrow of time always moves forward. Entropy carries the march of time. It is the essence of moving towards dissolution. It is the mechanism that forces a system to spread into chaos over time. Usually, the story ends here, but entropy is not the end. Chaos doesn't just fizzle into nothingness. It is a bridge by which old structures are broken down for a new one to arise. Think about how we create new materials and forms. We take raw materials, break them down into smaller parts, make them malleable, and recompose them into a new form. Suddenly, silicon from sand, steel from iron ore, and lithium mined from earth become the phone you're watching this video on. We introduced entropy. We brought chaos, and eventually we created change in a system. But what we do isn't special. This is exactly how reality works. At the macro level, we can see this in dying stars, where supernova explosions scatter heavier elements like carbon, oxygen, and iron, which will eventually be used to make star systems and planets, and even you. Remember, we are stardust. The atoms in our bodies come from the entropy of stars. At the micro level, we see this in particle decay, where unstable subatomic particles shatter, releasing bursts of energy. But of course, this is not the end. Eventually, those fragments slow down, cool, and bind together. The remnants become the building blocks of stable quarks and electrons, which form all physical matter. This is the recomposition of reality, and we are direct products of this process. The evolution of mankind was only made possible by the entropy of the previous dominant species, clearing the path for us to walk into the future. It is only from those ashes and the chaotic unlocking of trapped energy that a new species had the room to evolve. Entropy brings forth the tides of change, ensuring that no old structures crystallize existence into a state of stagnation. Chaos, then, is not the enemy of progress, it is the very essence of revolution. The Pendulum of Power. Change Manifest. Change is the language that reality uses to grow, to become a greater version of itself. But this isn't just about the recomposition of matter for creation. This also happens within our own capabilities. As we mentioned earlier, we constantly move the goalposts for our limitations, breaking the barriers we impose on ourselves. Humanity has come a long way, creating things that previous generations thought impossible. This is what usually happens in paradigm shifts, where previously established principles are broken down to make way for new possibilities. It is often more chaotic than we think. Decades of research and knowledge accumulated by old principles either shift or become obsolete. Chaos brings that change to the forefront, dissolving our old assumptions to dream of new worlds previously never thought of. But this process is not random. It has structure. This is where it connects back to the framework of our philosophy. We introduce the Pendulum of Power, a metaphysical framework with three zones of possibilities. The first two zones are dualistic. They are the chain of opposite poles. On one end, there is power, where possibility actualizes. And on the other end, there is opposition, where that possibility has friction and a differentiating pole that makes it difficult for the possibility to happen. It is a structure found in most traditional metaphysical frameworks, much like classical hermeneutics, which locks understanding into a strict binary loop between the intent of the author and the interpretation of the reader. But in the Pendulum of Power, there is a chaotic space in between where all change happens. This is the probabilistic space for novelty to arise, a zone of absolute emergence. Here, the collision of opposites doesn't just result in one pole winning over the other. Instead, it causes entirely new properties and unpredictable realities to burst forth. This chaos effectively breaks the constant stagnant loop of opposing forces, resolving the perpetual trap that leaves purely dualistic frameworks frozen in place. We see this pattern in history, where two opposing forces give way to an unpredictable force that changes everything. For centuries, the Byzantine Roman Empire and the Sasanian Persian Empire had been locked in an exhausting rivalry. A war of attrition locked the two empires in a loop. But then, in an insignificant region in the Middle East, a new empire was brewing. Suddenly, the Islamic Caliphate burst onto the scene and swallowed the territories of the old empires. The exhausted battles of two opposing powers left a power vacuum that paved the path for the Caliphate to dismantle the old world order. And this pattern continues all throughout history. And we see this again in the French Revolution. The French aristocracy had become bloated, where the monarchy drained its pockets through constant international wars and overspending on luxuries its country could not afford. This trickled down to the peasantry, where they were not only starving but forced to continue to fund the lavish lives of the elites. Eventually, the peasantry revolted, and the French Revolution began. This force destabilized the country, fracturing the loop between monarchy and the peasantry, leading to a chaotic vacuum of execution, terror, and instability. Then, in a vacuum, came an ambitious man who forever changed the landscape, not just in France, but the entire European peninsula. Out of the ashes rose Napoleon Bonaparte, an unsuspecting low ranking artillery officer who used a new meritocratic military system to seize an empire, completely breaking the old rules of royal bloodlines across Europe. But before this, there was another revolution that actually made this all happen. Before the French, there was the American. Before the fall of the monarchy, it had spent most of its years battling its rival, Britain. These two rivals were locked in a decades-long conflict, a global tug of war for colonial dominance, treating the American colonies as simple chess pieces. What they failed to realize is that these colonists were not satisfied with the crown. Constant wars with the French had forced Britain to impose heavy taxes on the colonials, and so a new empire would rise to defy the British, thus birthing the United States of America. What rarely gets mentioned is that the French monarchy had actually financially supported the American rebels to oppose the British, providing loans that the Americans never paid. This bankrupted the French monarchy, which became the catalyst for a revolution in their own backyard. But this pattern doesn't just happen in history. We've discussed extensively the various scientific revolutions that changed the paradigm. We've covered figures like Dr. Catalin Carrico and June Almeida, so we'll briefly cover them again in the context of this framework with other paradigm shifts not previously mentioned. Early virology and medicine were locked in a debate about diseases. There were two poles, the visible and invisible, where one was visible bacteria that can be viewed under a microscope, and the other were invisible pathogens that were undetectable at the time. An unsuspecting outsider introduced a chaotic technique that used antibodies to clump viruses together, allowing the invisible pathogens to be seen. Dr. Catalin Carrico's discovery broke the DNA versus protein loop, where modern medicine was stuck in a strict dualistic loop for treating generic or viral diseases. On one pole was altering the master DNA, which was viewed as highly risky by the establishment, and on the other was injecting finished proteins. She broke this loop by introducing something controversial, using the chemical code of mRNA to bypass the immune system, using the human body as its own automated factory, paving the way to mRNA vaccines that would be eventually used to combat the COVID-19 crisis. Now let's move to major paradigm shifts that would define physics for years to come: quantum mechanics and general relativity. 19th century physics was trapped in a fierce debate over the qualities of light, split between Newton's laws of localized particles and Huygens' theory of continuous waves. As physicists at the time tried to prove one pole right, they accidentally stumbled upon a new world that would break classical assumptions of reality. Out of the chaos emerged quantum mechanics, proving that light was both a particle and a wave, now known as the wave particle duality. But another revolution was slowly creeping on the other side. At the time, classical science had treated physical matter, solid mass, and intangible energy like light or forces as two completely separate parallel tracks. Then, experiments measuring the speed of light began yielding impossible, chaotic results that defied traditional Newtonian physics. Enter Albert Einstein. He broke the loop with his two famous theories, general relativity and special relativity, revealing that mass and energy were interchangeable. This showed in his famous equation E equals mc squared. It showed that matter and energy are not opposites, but the same thing in a different form. However, these discoveries actually created another pendulum in science that we are currently still dealing with. Quantum mechanics and general relativity, our two greatest theories in reality, are in an oppositional loop. The two theories are incompatible, and even though there are competing theories like string theory or quantum loop gravity, the problem remains. But if we follow the pendulum framework, this is exciting news. Following the pattern, these two oppositional forces will yield an entirely new field within science that will revolutionize the paradigm altogether. Something unexpected, a field unrelated to purely physical laws. Consciousness. Could consciousness be the missing link? Many of the founding fathers of quantum mechanics, like Erwin Schrödinger and Max Planck, believed that consciousness was integral to quantum mechanics. But consciousness as well is actually facing a pendulum of its own, where currently materialist and non materialist theories of consciousness are competing. And that's what makes reality so fun and exciting. Reality is not a fixed map, it's constantly changing, evolving, and we get to experience that change. Sometimes it's scary, but it can also be transformative. Using this framework, the future genuinely looks exciting. Back to the rules. Let's briefly connect this back to the two rules of reality: opposition and unification. In the pendulum of power, we can actually see these two rules embedded in the structure itself. The two opposing poles operate with the rule of opposition. Everything has an opposing force. Possibility requires friction, and in that resistance, there is power. A tug of war of either one, which wins the battle of shaping reality. But when we zoom out, we see that these opposites are actually embedded within a larger structure, the pendulum itself. This is where the rule of unification plays, where every force, regardless of relation, which includes opposition, locks into a relationship. The two opposite poles don't exist in isolation. They reinforce each other. But here's where the dualism breaks. The middle point. Chaos brings forth either or an entirely new force that challenges both. This goes back to the rule of opposition, which allows motion to continue when two forces get stuck in an oscillatory loop. This ensures reality continues to evolve, to continue to change. So, we end with this phrase to expand the entire framework. It's not just dualism, its duality in multiplicity, in perpetuity for eternity. The spiral of reality, connecting to our lives. The pendulum of power is not just for macro scale events. We can also use it in our daily lives. The possibility of your ideal life lies on either side, and the events and choices you make determine whether you achieve that vision or not. But remember, we have to take chaos into account, which can dramatically shift our reality. For example, let's say you want to be a famous artist. So you work hard and perform gigs. But since you're new, you play in small restaurants or shops that barely get recognized. But then, it just so happens that a big time producer visits one of the unpopular restaurants you're performing in on a whim. Because of this, he gets to enjoy your performance and signs you up to their record label. This is chaos working in your favor. But the opposite can happen too. Instead of getting to perform for that producer, you get into a car accident and miss your gig. Chaos is an unpredictable force of power that constantly moves reality, changing the trajectory of your path and shifting possibility. Let's see how this works practically with this scenario. Your goal is to get a job, and you just finished your job interview. It went well, not that difficult, but you did kind of stutter when they asked you about your weaknesses. Now let's set up the pendulum. Your vision of getting a job rests in three zones: success, failure, and chaos. In the first zone, success, the company likes you, so you pass the interview and get the job. You have power. You won. The second zone, failure. They preferred someone else more qualified. You failed the interview and you don't get the job. You lost power. Then we have the third zone, chaos. This is the anything goes realm, where the pendulum can move in either direction or spawn an entirely new possibility. Now, let's say after the interview, you get a call from your old friend. You met him in college and had several projects with him. He remembers how successful your dynamic was. It just so happens he's starting a new business and looking for a partner. So he calls you to ask if you want to join him. Just like that, chaos hands you a new path to take. Now you either get a job or become a business partner. Now the chances of you winning have expanded and you have more opportunities to explore. The whole point of this framework in your life is to be open to change in reality, to adapt to the chaos of life, not to be paranoid of it. To know that any day now things can happen to you that drastically change your life. You don't just go with the flow, you steer the boat of your life, navigate through hardships and unpredictable situations and make the most out of it. And when you are trying to manifest your dreams, you won't be so unprepared when life hits you with curveballs. You use them to your advantage, making your reality closer to your dreams. Impossibility is the enemy of progress, and so many have walked the path of uncertainty, but eventually got to the place where they were always meant to be. Many figures we mentioned, Dr. Carico, June Almeida, and even Einstein, who spent 9 years to find a job in academia, forced to work a boring job as a patent officer, faced years of uncertainty, rejections, and it seems like the pendulum was swinging away from them. Despite all of this, they still made it. And you aren't the exception to this process. You are a part of it. So don't give up on your purpose. Dig deep and steer your destiny. And the pendulum will swing to make your dreams a reality. Thank you, conscious colleagues, for lending me your ear. In today's episode, we explored the structure of possibility, where we capture the mechanism that produces change. In the next video, we will be exploring the force of spread and congregate, the behavior of reality that operates like a feedback loop across different scales. Thank you, and see you in the next episode.